loving one another is the biggest thing. And I'm talking about unconditional love, that fatherly love, that motherly love that comes with that.
He bought in 100% into what we were about from the get-go.
We've had patients who've come in with cancer that, we diagnosed them with their cancer and made phone calls, and now they're walking around smiling. They don't have a roof over their head. They don't have a comfortable bed to sleep in. The body needs time to recover. They're wearing worn out shoes. They don't have support. So they're going to have knee problems. They're going to have back problems. They're going to have hip problems. And then they're sleeping on hard concrete. They can't sleep on benches anymore because you got certain cities have actually removed the benches.
Or put a hump in the middle of it.
Rest is important. 6 to 8 hours to recover. The buses are going to do amazing things there.
So what message do you have for people out there that may still think things like they're lazy, they're drunks, and other stereotypical things?
Come out and see for yourself. We challenge you to come out. We need help. You can throw money at anything. Money does not solve the problem. Love solves the problem. Come out, love on these people a little bit, and you'll see.
Hi everyone, Tracy Lewis with Imagine, and we are here with Pastor Scott Ballou, who is the founder and CEO of Matthew's Hope, as well as Dr. John Rothwell, who heads up the medical team here at Brevard campus of Matthew's Hope. This podcast is produced and filmed and edited by our amazing John Burkett with Imagine. Welcome to this week's episode of Straight Talk, No BS with Matthew's Hope, presented by Imagine Marketing. At Imagine Marketing, we put in the extra effort to craft a tailored strategy for success. We also offer photography, videography, and even podcast production services. So book your free consultation today. In this episode, we will be learning what called Dr. John to serve the way he does and find out what types of medical challenges those experiencing homelessness face most often. So Dr. John, thank you for joining us today. Can you start by giving everyone some background on yourself and how you got into medicine?
Well, thank you, Tracy. I think it's quite simple. 1978, I was playing hooky from school, lied to my mom. My mom took me to the doctors, and they identified me with an unknown bleeding disorder. So for the next 12 months, I spent in and out of the hospital, blood draws 3 times a day, until finally a nurse and a physician, I remember the physician's name, Dr. Hart, who was an oncologist, said, you know what, I'm not sure what we're going to do with you. And so they took me to Duke University and they took my spleen out. And as soon as they took my spleen out, all my blood levels went to normal.
Wow.
And my mom was just like, it's a miracle, because we didn't know what this was. And that was one of the first miracles in my life that I recognized. And I knew at that time that I wanted to find a way to give back. And I remember in high school asking my mom if we could invite some people over for Thanksgiving. What she didn't realize it was people that were living on the street.
Wow.
And she's like, you're the guy who's going to bring home everybody. And then, of course, I did the teenage things, and the teenage things led to not thinking so much about what was going on in the community, but more selfish. And so my mom kicked me out of the house, and I ended up in the United States Army because she wanted me to go into the United States Air Force. And when I went there, I scored very high on my ASVAB test, and they gave me the job of combat medic. And so combat medic, for those people who don't know, is kind of like an EMT paramedic type role. And I was blessed to serve with the 2nd to the 1st Aviation. It was an attack helicopter unit when the Apache helicopters first came out. And I was a flight medic. Served in the Middle East, served over in Europe, and then ended up at University of Central Florida in their College of Nursing. But once again, as the young man that I wasn't quite ready for school. And so I left because I didn't get into the nursing program. They said my grades weren't good enough. And I moved to Jacksonville, Florida, where I met my wonderful spouse, who was a single mom. And she said, what are you going to do with your life, right? And so I guess I had to grow up then. So I ended up in nursing school that used my military experience and went to nursing school. And immediately they accepted me into a critical care program when I graduated. And that's kind of where that started. Fast forward, 10 years in healthcare, I got out because the system to me is broken. I got frustrated with the way the healthcare system not only treats the uninsured, the underserved, but also the insured. So I got into technology until I went bankrupt. And during that time was a time of when I actually got sober. I had an addiction to alcohol and drugs when I was in technology, probably because I could afford it.
Mm.
And when I lost everything, I had to really dig deep down inside to decide what I was going to do.
Mm.
And so I decided that I was going to go back to serving and giving others. So I ended up back at University of Central Florida, got my bachelor's degree in nursing, got accepted into the doctorate program there, and they let you get your master's on the way. 12 credits in, I'm teaching with the faculty that denied me in the early 90s. And that was super cool.
Yeah, that is really
cool. And when they asked me what I wanted to do in my doctorate work, I said I wanted to work with the uninsured and underserved community. And so as I matriculated through the program at UCF to finalize my doctorate, I worked at another organization in Orange County. They were in Orange and Seminole County, where I did a feasibility study to bring in a radiology center into a nonprofit that focused on homelessness. And, in turn, I think we ended up saving the first year they opened that up, along with the collaboration of care, right? The care coordination that went with that saved somewhere around $6.4 million.
Wow.
And so that's where that love of this is real. I can do this. Mm. I met Pastor Scott while I was doing a business plan and a feasibility study to open a street clinic here in Brevard County.
Mm.
And during my research, I found that it wasn't the right time or the right demographic. As a veteran, I have a heart for veterans, so I was going to serve the veteran community.
Sure.
They do a very good job in Central Florida with veterans. Not perfect, but they do very good, especially on the homelessness front. And I saw Scott. Scott was wearing a cross. Not the one I'm wearing now.
I was going to say, the one you're wearing.
The one that he's wearing now.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at that and I go, did you get that from Montreat Anderson? And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, I did. I go, I used to go to youth camp there.
Oh, wow.
And I gave that same cross to my son when he graduated high school. And I go, I think we can do some good things. And that was the beginning of the relationship. We weren't open yet here in Brevard.
Yeah.
And that's where it kind of started.
Nice. So, John, what led you to be passionate about helping those experiencing homelessness?
That's a tough question. And I almost want to say I don't know. But in reflecting on that, it makes me think a lot about my upbringing. So my dad was a Marine. I'd not say was a Marine. He is a Marine. He
passed a Marine.
Yeah. He passed away a few years ago. And he was never around. It was just my mom raising us kids, my sister and I. And they divorced when I was very young. And the military had a very unique environment because in the 60s and the 70s, where you still had segregation in the South, you still had, one group of people lived on one side of the railroad tracks, another group lived on the other side of the railroad tracks. And that still occurs today too, by the way. But this is in the 70s. The military community wasn't like that. We say that there's no atheists in foxholes, and we're all brothers. And so, and now we're brothers and sisters in arms because women are taking a larger role in our military as well. And so during that, you get exposed to a lot of different communities, a lot of different people. We didn't come from much. My mom worked 2 and 3 jobs so that we could live in a community that liked the Ralph Lauren's and the Lightning Bolts and the Ocean Pacific. And we could go to the school that had that kind of demographic. And living outside of that demographic, you were bussed in. And so I believe my mom brought me up in the church. And so I believed in God and I believed in Jesus. But I think one of the hardest things that humans have is not necessarily loving God, though there's plenty of people who don't even believe in God, but loving God, but it's loving one another. And we see that in today's society. Loving one another is the biggest thing. And I'm talking about unconditional love, that fatherly love, that motherly love that comes with that. It's hard to find an everyday thing. And I think it's one of the things I do extremely well, because those are the 2 things that I can do right because I mess up in so many other things in my life. And so, yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that you asked your mom if some people can come over for Thanksgiving, but they were homeless. So maybe it's just been in you.
I think it's in me.
That's why you can't even pinpoint it.
Yeah, and so now as, when you're young, you're learning, you're reading, you gain some knowledge, then you have experiences that influence you. And then hopefully you live long enough and you make enough mistakes to where people breathe some wisdom into your life and you start to understand what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
And in scripture, when it says for us to take care of widows, take care of orphans, it's to take care of those who are less fortunate than others. I mean, it's very clear in that environment. But the two things that are very clear is love God and love one another. And you can't mess that up. All the other things you can mess up, but those very two true. you can't mess up. And so I built my business on that. God, family, and community, not Island Direct Primary Care, not Main Street Direct Primary Care, not any other wild hair idea that I come up with. It's that. And then it's to be loving first, to be empowering, and then be encouraging. And so that there's growth that comes along with that.
And I'm just going to say, John does this very well. Not just because he's become a friend, he now serves on our board. His whole team is heavily involved in Matthew's Hope. He does it well. He demonstrates doing it well, and those he surrounds himself with do it well. For us, I think the coolest thing is when we talk with our homeless guests, they're always giving us input, whether we ask for it or not. But typically what I'm always hearing is, I really like seeing John because he listens to me. He heard me. He remembered my name. And these are things that we have built, Matthew 25, really simple. Like John said, you can't really mess up love God and love his people. All the rest of it's really easy to mess up or get involved yourself in things that God never intended us to be involved with. Love God, love his people. You do those two things. The rest of it just kind of takes care of itself. And so when you're loving these people unconditionally, rather than looking at them of who we think they should be, or however we may look at them, to hear them say, he heard me, he took time with me. No one else has listened to me to explain this to them. They got me out of the office so fast, or I was in the hospital, they hooked me up with an IV, they got fluids in me and released me in the middle of the night. Okay, that's not going to fix things. Okay, and anybody who wants to take issue with that, go ahead and take issue with me. I don't care. That's just not going to take care of things. And though we can't fix everything, and though we can't address every situation that walks in, a lot of times we're kind of a triage unit. Okay, we work very hard, and his team works very hard with our team in identifying what can we connect them to. If we don't do it, if we can't do it, who do we know? John is known to call some favors in at times. He knows other people in the medical profession around Brevard County, and he's picked up the phone more than once and said, hey, will you take a look at this for us? And in more cases than none, that was done for free. And there's nothing really free. It's their value in that. But that's somebody else who bought into the same idea that is our whole philosophy of our ministry is do what you can, not what you can't. And then that takes the next step. So it just continues to grow from there. And though Brevard hasn't yet caught up with Orange County, I've also been doing it over there for a whole lot longer. We are gaining speed and gaining the partnerships out there we need to do this pretty effectively. But it really starts and ends with love God, love his people, and shut up.
That's good.
Okay. And those of you that are listening and can see my face right now, you pastors and everybody else that love Jesus,
and love us,
love God, love people. Yeah, well, I love the air quotes because if you can see them, if you can't see them, because I get tired of seeing that. When I see people that said they love Jesus, they teach Bible study, blah 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 blah, like they give their God resume as though God's up there going, "Oh, I didn't know that. Let me click that one off. Oh, you did Bible study. That's wonderful. Okay, yeah, make sure one extra prayer we gave for Kim. Okay, yeah, sorry. So, little rant here. Love God, love people, love people. We're not the God police. Watch what happens when you just love God, love people.
Right. And Dr. John, what exactly do you do for Matthew's Hope and their guests currently?
What do you do, John?
Do you do, Dr. John?
And just for clarification, it's Dr. John, nurse practitioner. And so all my staff are advanced practice registered nurses that all have terminal degrees. So we actually all have doctorate degrees. And so we're not medical doctors or doctors of osteopathic medicine. The state of Florida lets us work autonomous once you have a certain amount of experience and a certain number of hours and those kind of things. And so while I'm an autonomous nurse practitioner, I actually partner with and collaborate with medical doctors and doctors of osteopathic medicine because I think it's good business. I think it's smart, and I think it's a great way to make sure that you're doing what's best for your patients, not your ego. And so what we do at Matthew's Hope, first and foremost, is love them. We sit down with them. We sit down eye to eye, and we listen to their story. And as we're listening to their story, we kind of get an idea of why are they there, right? And so sometimes it's just bug bites because they didn't have clothing at night, to cover themselves up, and they didn't have bug spray. Sometimes it's, upset stomach because they've never been on the street before, their first time homelessness, and their nutrition has changed, and they're eating beanie weenies and Vienna sausages and those kind of things. It's people come in who, they're having heart palpitations and face flushing or dizziness because a lot of the food has high sodium content, and they're out in the heat and they're dehydrated because they don't have fresh water. And so their blood pressure is elevated and they don't know what to do. And so, they come see us for that. Mental health is a pandemic in our country, right? Not just COVID.
Right.
Mental health is huge. And matter of fact, I think in some cases, if you take the homelessness away, the mental health can go away too. The mental health was actually triggered by the homelessness.
Makes sense.
And so that's interesting to find those. I think our biggest goal here, besides loving the guest, is to help the mission make sure that we're providing resources within the community so that the community's resources are maximized. And so that means, when I worked in the emergency room, my background's emergency medicine, not just being a flight nurse, but working in the ER as a nurse practitioner as well. And to see the people that are in and out, the law states that you have to take care of everybody, which is extremely expensive. It's low acuity visit. It's $4,610. And that was 6 years ago.
Wow.
Okay. So for just a low acuity visit, so for a guest or someone who's uninsured or underserved or underinsured, if they walk in for a sore throat, that's an expensive bill.
Yeah.
And so if we can head that off and do something for them here, if it's viral, give them for symptom management, give them something that's easy to do. If it's bacterial, unfortunately, there's laws in the state that deal with sovereign immunity and prescriptions and those kind of things. So we have to balance those resources. But now we've partnered with Brevard Health Alliance. And so this is these are some of the new things that we're doing here in Brevard County that we, don't necessarily have the same resources in Orange County, where we're trying to put these strategic partnerships together so that resources are maximized and we're able to better care for our guests in long term. And one of the interesting things is we've had cancer patients here. We've had surgical patients here. And the physicians, though people get upset with the system, the medical personnel in our county are amazing. We've had surgeries done.
Significant
surgeries done. And that's just been just a blessing. We've had patients who've come in with cancer that, we diagnosed them with their cancer and made phone calls, and now they're walking around smiling.
Jerry.
Yeah.
Jerry.
Yeah, JB. Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I call him. And so, this gentleman's jaw was down to here, and now his jaw looks normal.
Crazy.
It is a miracle. And how this started was he wore a mask. Nobody was talking to him. And I asked him a question. I go, well, have they removed your mask? And they didn't. I go, I need you to remove your mask. And I could smell the rot. I could smell the cancer in him.
Wow.
And I looked at him and go, JB, I'm not too sure what we're going to be able to do here, but here's what I can do. I go, can I pray for you? And he said, yes. And then he cried, right? And then we went to work, right?
Mm.
And so JB recently was able to reconnect with his home up in North Carolina,
Okay.
visited, and they want him up there. And he goes, I have to go finish what I started.
Wow.
Right? And that's one of the beautiful things about this ministry is it's not about starting and getting partway there. There's a process so that we help them help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that is it, right? We're not the savior.
Yeah.
We're the helpers.
Right.
And I guess, I'm going to touch on this also is, he kept the mask on also is he didn't want to see people see his face.
Mm.
I mean, this was a significant tumor.
Yeah.
I mean, those that can only hear can't see how I'm using my hand, but we're talking about a fist size thing on his face. And there was in before and after pictures. We asked for his picture the other day, and he automatically pushed his head back to show us his chin. And go, we just want to take a picture, okay? When we looked at the two pictures, the before and after, not only did he have the mask on, you could see there was significant growth under the mask. There was a deadness in his eyes.
Mm.
There's a joy in his face now. And so he pulls me aside coming down the way the other day. He said, Pastor Scott, can I hug you? And I said, well, sure, Jerry. What's he, and he goes, and I want to thank you. He goes, first off, he says, the food here is amazing. The showers, I think he said, he actually used the words, I think, glorious, which is kind of funny. I mean, he's using some pretty power adjectives. Yeah. And he says, being able to have fresh clothes and laundry done is just been such a blessing to me. He said, however, what I really want to thank you for, and he says, it's two things. He said, one is thank you for giving me a second chance at life. Mm. And number two, thank you for becoming my family.
Oh.
And that gets you up the next day.
Mm-hmm.
We could have easily said, this is outside our pay grade. We could have easily said, that's way above, right. We don't do that. When people, the one thing I hate using the word pride, but I pride myself on Matthew's Hope is before we just say, well, we don't do that, or we say, well, there's one we haven't seen before. Let's see what we can do. And it usually starts with a phone call, some research by, either the staff or in his case, John's team. And next thing you know, here's this guy, his face is taken completely back to its regular shape. He smiles. He's still got some healing to do. Okay. But he smiles constantly. And again, this is all about do what you can, not what you can't, but do something. And again, that starts with love people for who they are, not for who we expect them to be. Just love unconditionally and not be afraid to know that God is on our side.
Yeah.
And if he's with us, who's against us? And right. So I think those are just important.
I know where you got that from.
You know what? yeah, I know, but it's true. It's true. We are seeing things here that most people will never even give themselves an opportunity to witness because you don't open yourself. I tell people sometimes I feel like I'm a voyeur and I'm kind of tucked over here watching these things that I wasn't supposed to see. And God kind of gave me a little peek behind the curtain and said, watch this, watch this. Okay. And even what's crazy in my humanness, I still wake up with a certain amount of doubt every day in myself and the old me. And
sure.
You and I have talked about those things that, I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. I haven't been homeless in 40 years. I haven't been addicted to anything for 35. But I still kind of like, okay, I'm looking over my shoulder. But every day I get that reassurance, not that I deserve it in any way, that God is powerful. He's at work. He's not forgotten us, and he's in this place. Mm-hmm. And so John does that well. His staff, like I said, does that well. And he bought in 100% into what we were about from the get-go, and now is helping us being the very best we can be. Mm-hmm. Because when we surround ourselves with the best and we walk in faith, you kind of stir that into a pot. Mm-hmm. It makes for the very perfect possibility. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
And how often are the medical offices open for your guests?
Do me a favor before I want to touch on one other thing, because there's a lot of numbers thrown around. What a currently a visit to the ED. Now they don't like to call it ER. It's ED. I don't know why.
Emergency department.
Emergency department. Okay, it was ER for years. Now it's ED. A lot of cost of what a visit costs. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've heard as low as $3,500 a visit. I've heard as high as $7,500 a visit. Pick a number anywhere in between there. Between our two locations right now, we're seeing somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 people a week. Mm. Take the lowest number, 3,500, 100 people a week.
Wow.
Multiply that by 52 weeks, okay, with a number that continues to grow, especially in Brevard, each month as we add more. So if we just use the lowest numbers, can't do that in my head. I'm not that smart. It's a lot of money. And the one challenge I've had, and I put out to anybody listening to this in the medical field, especially if you're in medical administration, why wouldn't you want to partner with us? And here's why. This is good for not just the homeless community. This is good for the community as a whole. And you touched on it briefly in what you said earlier, is that when you go to the emergency room, if somebody else is there for a hangnail, okay, and something else is seriously going on, that person was in line first. We got them out of line. One, we got them better care than they would have gotten because we're going to follow up with it. And secondly, the hospital didn't have to absorb that cost. Okay. And then thirdly, you don't have people in the emergency room that really don't have an emergency there. That means you're getting care quicker. Mm-hmm. And that's what the ER is for. And if medical organizations and hospitals would recognize that, partner with us, we could do even more because we can spend the money better doing what we do, which allows them to do what they do better because they don't have to flush through all that. Right. The cost is going to stay the same for them. Mm-hmm. So I just want to touch on that. You don't have to say a word. That's me saying that. We have some hospital organizations working with us. You do great. Do more. You can do better. Do more. Because the more you partner with us and other organizations that are doing what we're doing, which there's not a lot of them, we can do this better.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the beauty of the doctor of nursing practice programs. If we could get the universities, University of Central Florida, University of South Florida, Florida Atlantic, if we can get them to work with organizations like Matthew's Hope and actually do the quantitative studies, do the work so that they don't have to. So they don't have to go out and get a $200,000 grant. They get someone like me. UCF was my sponsor. Mm-hmm. We had 3 of us working at this underserved, uninsured nonprofit doing medical research. And that was our doctorate work. One was on CT scans. Mine just happened to be, and I think where the mobile came into play was this organization had 5 locations. If we built a radiology center in one location, will the guest come? Mm. And the answer was yes, because they want the continuity of care.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Which reduces the overall cost of care because now we know where everybody's at. And so when we work with the guest here, we do enough to make sure that they come back on Thursday, to make sure they come back on Tuesday. And so we take care of, so my organization, now that Brevard Health Alliance is here every other Tuesday, we backfill the Tuesdays and then we picked up Thursdays. And so now we're trying to have representatives here at the doctorate level 2 days a week.
Gotcha. So is that for Orange County too?
That's for Orange. Yeah, both location has an amazing number of not just a volunteer nurse practitioners, which one of the beauty of John has become my doc, and for our staff as well. And part of the beauty of it is that he comes from a nursing background. Doctors are often treating, in my opinion, the symptom in front of them, whereas the nurse practitioner can take more time to kind of peel the onion back and say, well, how did we get here, and how does this affect? And correct me if I'm wrong. How does this affect the entire human body?
Sure.
Doing this. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
I get that. And I think, from a physician, I'm not a physician, so I can't speak for medical doctors and doctors of osteopathic medicine, because I think if given in the right environment, they want the whole body whole too, but they're limited to the guidelines.
And to the time frame is what I'm talking about.
In the time frame, right? So the average time spent with a patient, 7 to 13 minutes. In my practice, I see one patient an hour, right? So it's a different model. And then they're traditionally trained in medicine, whereas we're traditionally trained in caring.
Yeah.
So when you take that, that's why we fit really, really good in the environment, right? You know, that whole Florence Nightingale thing where her working with the wounded soldiers in the Crimean War was keeping them clean, hello showers, giving them somewhere to sleep, hello buses, right? And then light, sunshine, right? And so those are, you know, Maslow's hierarchy, right? It's just giving them a safe place, giving them food security, and giving them those things, giving those basic needs. So at least they have a foundation to build on. Because if they don't have that foundation, there's just no building anything.
Right.
So now we can start talking about mustard seeds, right?
Right.
Well, don't get them started on that. I have more questions.
Well, but you know what? Thanks for cleaning that for me, because John, I knew if I could kind of lead John in here, he could say, you know, what I was trying to get out there. A lot of it has to do, the doctors have been forced just by the system to move people in and out very quickly. And I think that because they're coming from a different angle, from a nursing standpoint, is what I see.
Right.
So jumping back to Orange and Brevard County, we have a large number of nurse practitioners and even a psychiatric nurse practitioner working with us, along with the RNs that are on our staff. And so when they're not here, we have RNs here doing things throughout the week, along with when you have someone like a Jerry. Well, Jerry needs to be taken to his appointment. So an RN's taking him to the appointment. It's a couple of things, not just about the transportation. It's about sitting in, listening, right,
being their advocate,
being an advocate, and then hearing, okay, what does this follow-up care look like? Make sure we're getting the medications, making sure wounds are cleaned in an appropriate time frame, all those little things. Part of the
healing.
Which is huge because there is times when I have watched people go in for significant surgeries being released out into an environment that is moist, bacteria filled. They can't keep the wound clean properly. There's so many pieces that go to this, and they end up actually in worse shape than they were when they started. To nobody's fault. Right. It's just the system. It's how it's built and broken. We're able to step in with our qualified medical people, along with our other team that comes in, and make sure that person's whole is served, and that we are going to take them from point A to point B and then figure out what the next spot is. And that's literally how it works.
So Scott, you often talk about the Florida's anti-camping law and how it forces people to continuously move and rarely get any meaningful rest. What kind of medical impact can that have on a person over a long period of time, Dr. John?
It's actually a short period of time. It's not even a long period of time. And I don't think you have to be homeless or underserved or uninsured. I think that when it comes to rest, as an American people, we don't do it well. Okay. And so even whether I'm talking with a homeless guest who has no bed, who has no place to sleep, and then I'm talking to one of my patients at Island Direct Primary Care or at Main Street Direct Primary Care who has a bed, who has a roof, who has air conditioner, who has a place to sleep.
Yeah.
They're not sleeping 6 to 8 hours like they need to. Everyone needs a certain amount of sleep. Is it 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours? We're all different. We're all our unique individual. And when working with the guest, they don't have a roof over their head. They don't have a comfortable bed to sleep in. We already have an issue in our own communities that have homes. They don't get enough rest. And then we're expecting the homeless people to actually get rest. The body needs time to recover. So you need time to process the movement that you've had all day. And in the case of our guest, they're wearing worn out shoes. They don't have support. So they're going to have knee problems. They're going to have back problems. They're going to have hip problems. So sleeping is going to be an issue. They need to recover. And then they're sleeping on hard concrete. They can't sleep on benches anymore because you got certain cities have actually removed the benches.
Or put a hump in the middle of it.
Or what have not. And so you can't, you might find a soft spot in the grass to go. We call that I think Charlene called it last night, something where, they have a flat place to see and it's been there where you can actually rest. So rest is important, 6 to 8 hours to recover and refresh. The buses are going to do amazing things there. How many guests are we going to be able to sleep per bus?
20 per bus.
20 per bus times 4, right? And so that's an amazing opportunity for people to at least have an opportunity to rest and recover. So then, of course, they can shower and refuel. A simple can of Vienna sausages is 13 grams of protein.
Mm-hmm.
And a tuna is, depending on the brand, is 20 to 30 grams of protein. I need over 100 grams of protein. So these guests need imagine carrying around 10 cans of beanie weenies or 10 cans of Vienna sausages, right? It's a little tough. And so resting and recovery is super, super important. And then, of course, fueling their body with the right nutrients.
Unfortunately, most of our folks are, as hard as we try and as much as we do, they're not getting proper nutrition. And then when you topple that with lack of proper hydration, and then you put on top of that poor rest at best, and then your rest, how good a rest are you getting if you're sleeping either sitting up, leaning against something, or laying on? I tell people all the time, that hard ground isn't going to get any softer. I remember my time on the streets, and I was, I'm 63 now. I was a lot younger, okay? And my body took it better. Right. But I watched some of these folks in here. When you think of how many of our folks are coming in here at baby boomer age, they're having hip problems and, like John said, back problems.
And you mentioned swollen ankles in a previous episode because they weren't able to lay flat.
The women living in their car, and because the body was designed to lay down 6 to 8 hours a night, and they're sitting in a car, and their poor ankles are as big as my thighs.
Gravity.
Okay. Yeah. And so that creates further health issues. Okay. Because they're not getting proper circulation. God forbid if they have something like diabetes with that.
Right.
Now they're developing ulcers on their feet because everything's rubbing because it's swollen. One thing happens. These are things that everyone, as we get older, deal with to a certain extent. But all of a sudden, when you take the rest, the nutrition, and hydration away, every one of them, clearly I'm not a medical doctor, but every one of those symptoms just became tenfold.
Let's break it down a little simpler, Tracy. Have you ever heard of circadian rhythm?
Yes.
Right? So that's kind of the rhythm of the world, right? And so your body has a circadian rhythm. It's horrible for medical staff because they work the night shift. And so they tend to not have good
nights. Well, now he's on days, so his rhythm is way off right now.
Yeah, and so it's not healthy. So imagine our guest. Your body should start to slow down around 10 o'clock at night, where you should be preparing for rest. If not, between 10:30 and 11:30 at night, your body secretes cortisol. It's a protective mechanism. I need to be awake to protect myself. So imagine sleeping on the streets and you're staying up late till all the stores close so that you can find a safe place so that nobody steals your stuff. So law enforcement doesn't remove you from your current location and wake you up, right? And so now you're awake. So you get a surge of cortisol, which means that surge has to come down before you can actually go to sleep. So now you're looking at 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. But the circadian rhythm says at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, you get another surge of cortisol to wake you up in an hour.
Oh.
So then you have another surge of cortisol. And then once you wake up, the body needs fuel. The brain's fuel is sugar. And so when you wake up the first 30 minutes, you get a spike of cortisol and then another spike. And so that's all thrown out of whack when you're living in homelessness.
And then there are seemingly minor medical issues, right, that people may take for granted that become serious problems for someone experiencing homelessness. Could you give some examples of those? Maybe like a hangnail you talked about. That could become
It's funny how, well, I'm going to address one thing that I've seen. Right now, we even have there's a fever going on.
Dengue fever.
Dengue. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Due to mosquitoes, right? That's happening here in Brevard County. We are desperately trying to get more bug repellent, mosquito spray, right? All of us at some point have scratched open a mosquito bite. Okay. And usually what would happen, most of the time it happened to kids, but it happened to us as adults too. You put a little antiseptic on it, you wash it, put a little antiseptic on it, but you're fine by morning. Now you're out in that damp, moist, bacteria-filled environment. I have seen personally where it started with mosquito bite, and I've watched pus pockets develop under the skin with full-blown infection, which means if I understand right, it could be spreading through your system. Possible, right? It's possible, right? And all that needed to happen was bug spray. That's simple. Would have probably taken care of the problem. And it turned into a much bigger deal. Now, John can speak to other things, but there's a lot of things that we take for granted because we easily can go to the cupboard and grab something or pick up the doc and say, I think I need to see the doctor. These folks don't have that ability.
So I was going to say bug bites too, by the way.
Oh,
Now you
well, you just haven't got. What about those spider bites the other day?
Well, those are bugs too, Scott.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, that was when we think bugs, mosquitoes, and then we think spider bites.
Well, we can take it a little further in the sense that the skin is the body's largest organ, and it's there to protect us. And unless you're homeless, you're probably taking that for granted. We see fungus that itches, that gets scratched by hands that aren't washed. And this body that's protecting, the skin that's protecting us, that has staphylococcus aureus or staph, strep, these kind of things, gets underneath your fingernails. You're scratching your fungus, you're scratching your bug bite, and then it's entering the body. It's a port of entry. And then this is how more severe things are spreading. So we are consistently making sure, like checking feet, checking hands and fingernails, making sure the guests get foot powder and different things like that so that we can reduce the amount of spread that goes there. And sometimes they're just like, well, they can't afford to get a medicine, for a fungus. And we're like, listen, do you have a cooking plate? Well, yeah, I have a hot plate and stuff like that. Get you a little thing of coconut oil, right? And coconut oil actually has an antifungal type thing, and you use that, and that acts as a barrier and also to help with the fungus. So there's a lot of things. So fungus, skin bites, those are probably the big things. And then I think one of the things people forget about is dentation, the teeth. And so I am always, the guests don't know it, but when I'm talking to them, I'm smelling their breath and I'm looking in their mouths. And poor dentation leads to heart disease. Wow. And a lot of people don't know that who are living in homes.
Yeah.
And so, so we need to make sure that, we're providing that. And so Matthew's Hope takes that into consideration, and we provide that education, and they get, toothbrush and toothpaste, and they're able to do that. But simple hygiene is the simplest protection.
And when you're living on the streets, it's not so simple. One thing we see all the time is people with diabetes. They have access to insulin, but guess what? You need to have your insulin done. It needs to be refrigerated. Now what? So there's so many things that play in that most of us take for granted. And then when we see someone in the streets and they seem to be, often people think, well, they're high or they're drunk. No, they're often dehydrated. They don't have the medications they're supposed to be on. Some of them are self-medicating, because I'm going to go one step further, and I'm not going to ask John to agree or disagree with me, because I won't even put him in that position. But I am 100% confident with the very soul of my being that we do not have a drug problem. We have a mental health care problem. And if we address mental health care properly, some of those people is 20 milligrams of Zoloft would change their life. But when you ignore that, it just keeps building. I see often addiction as a byproduct of becoming homeless. We don't see that many people. We really don't. We track this. Drug addicts became homeless. They became addicts and alcoholics because they self-medicated, because they did not have access to proper care. For me to go see my therapist, I'm blessed because I have friends that take care of me. But you're looking at people who get taken $150 to $200 an hour.
Yeah.
And then some of these medications are quite expensive. They can't.
Right.
They don't have access. And again, some of these things require refrigeration and other things. They don't have it. So from where I stand, I'm seeing things every day that I'm going, that shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. I think my whole attitude on life has been, hell no, not on my watch. If I can do anything about it, I don't have to know anything about it. I just need to know who to call.
Right.
Right.
But you can give them medicine, but people steal it. And so then you have that thing. And so it's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle. And so that's why ministries like Matthew's Hope so important, to help them help themselves. We want them out of homelessness.
Sure.
Right? Because as long as they stay in the homelessness, I don't care how much care you give them, how much money you give them, what have not.
So lastly, one of the goals of this podcast is to educate the general public about the realities of those experiencing homelessness and to debunk many of the stereotypes and stigmas that have existed for decades. So what message do you have for people out there that may still think things like they're lazy, they're drunks, they made their bed and now they deal with it, why don't they just get a job? Which people say this specifically, and other stereotypical things. What do you say to that?
Child's nicer than I am.
He's choosing his words wisely, I feel.
My mom said, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. And scripture talks about your tongue being a very powerful thing. What I have to say to the members of the community who are saying that is to come out and see for yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? We challenge you to come out. We need help. But you can throw money at anything. Money does not solve the problem. Love solves the problem. Come out, love on these people a little bit, and you'll see. I can name well over a dozen guests who've touched my heart, who I know in the right conditions, which we're trying to do here with the mission, that they will be out there working. Some of them are actually out there working, and they can do things and be productive in society, because most of them, unless there's a mental illness component, they want nothing more.
Yeah.
They didn't ask to be here.
And even with mental illness,
no one made.
Several guests that once they got the right medication and the right help,
absolutely,
they're out there.
We have seen
helping others now.
Many would claim miracles. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll also say this is that, we want to encourage people to educate themselves. You got to want to be educated, number one. Okay. We open ourselves to tours. We have this podcast is not for any other purpose, really, is to help educate people about things that are happening in homelessness. That's what it's for. We publish our Moving Forward magazine. The purpose again is to let people know what's happening out there. We do public tours, a couple of them a month, that all you got to do is call our facility and we'll get you on that thing. And we tell people, come in here with an open mind first, but bring your hard questions, see for yourself. And then if you feel so led to help in some way with your time, talents, or treasures, those of you that believe, okay,
we'll take it. We'll take it if you don't believe too.
We will. But I do challenge those people that are sometimes always pushing that, biblically blah. Well, you can't pick and choose what you want to believe. It's you're either in or you're out, right? And so, but it does help when you can come and see for yourselves. They can walk down in our medical clinic and they can see. First, they're going to find two things. They're going to find our exam rooms are probably the cleanest they've ever seen and the largest they've ever seen. part of that was even part of what I did personally was I kept going into doctors' offices and doctors were right up on me.
Mm.
And especially years ago when my anxiety level was higher, I didn't want people right up on me. So I started counting ceiling tiles. This is how this actually happened, how the design of our exam rooms came about. And I said, when we designed these, as I drew them on paper, I added 2 tiles, which was roughly 4 feet, so that the docs and the nurses could step back, be very casual conversation, but when it's time to go in, they had the tools necessary, look in the ear, look and doing all that kind of stuff. And because if any of us suffer from anxiety, now be homeless and that anxiety level, especially now, with sometimes being moved 2 or 3 times a night, I'm watching men much bigger than John and I just literally bawl like babies. And all they're asking for is to sleep or, Lord, please take me home. I can't do this any longer. And when you hear people talking about giving up their life because all they want is rest, that's a tough one.
That is hard.
And hopefully we're going to try to address that.
Definitely. Do you want to add anything before we close?
I want to thank Scott and his team for allowing our team to be part of the guests' lives, right? It's a huge part of who we are. We're humbled that they trust us, not only with the care of the guests, but the care of their employees. And so we're extremely grateful for you bringing the mission here to Brevard County.
Grateful for you.
Personal note is for him to entrust in me to allow me to bring my experience to Orange County and Brevard County to serve on the management board and the advisory board to share my experience, strength, and hope is also humbling. And so I'm extremely grateful and indebted to you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. My feelings are you haven't seen nothing yet. You keep watching. You think what we've done so far is cool. You have seen nothing yet. I think God has much greater plans for this ministry. I often compare it to the talents in Scripture. We did well with a little. He gave us more. We did well with that. He gave us a little bit more. And I think that as we go forward, we're not, again, I want to remind people in closing, we're not looking just to grow it for the sake of growing. We're looking to grow it so that we can better serve His people. And that's really all there is to it. These are His people, and they should be treated as such.
Yeah. Thank you both for being here. Thank you for all that you're doing, your team, and also thank you, Scott. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next episode.